Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel. It is Sunday. There's one more day of the NFL Scouting Combine left, but we are done, meaning CJ is done, back from Indianapolis, back in his humble abode in Austin, Texas. CJ, there are a few things we weren't able to get to when we last recorded, when we last posted something here on the channel. Quinn Ewers had not thrown yet. The throwing is done. It seems to me like, based on how they threw at the combine, the race for QB3 in this draft behind Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders seems like it's a two-horse race right now between Quinn Ewers and Jackson Dart.
Yeah, I totally agree. And they were far and away the two best arms that I watched on Saturday at the combine. And look, this is the exact setting that we were all expecting from Quinn Ewers to kind of step into and start to wow NFL scouts and executives once again. This is exactly where he's going to thrive. And again, to build on this, he's going to have another opportunity at the pro day where it's Quinn Ewers throwing to guys he's familiar with, right? The Gunnar Helms, the Jaden Blues out of the backfield. Of course, we can talk all about those wide receivers, but he's going to be familiar with those guys in a setting that he's already gone through once before, having thrown last year to Whittington, Sanders, Worthy, and Adonai Mitchell. So it's a great opportunity once again for Quinn to build on this. And this is exactly kind of the path that we were expecting. You know, the minute that he steps foot in Indianapolis, also to weigh 214, great sign for him with 9 3/8 inch hands as well. Great sign so far for Quinn Ewers. It's a good start. And to your point, starting to hear more and more of that second round for Quinn as a possibility.
That's where I wanted to go with you next, the buzz on him. You were around the talking heads, the scribes, all the media folks, scouts, coaches, GMs, everybody was in Indianapolis. If you had the proverbial gun to your head right now, where do you feel like the buzz is on Quinn Ewers coming out of the combine?
Yeah, I might be ducking myself if that was the case, Jeff. But look, it's a toss-up. And coming in, I've heard anywhere from third to fifth, right? I was in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, and I had an agent tell me, it was like, yeah, fifth round, no doubt, no questions asked. And I said, okay. So that's the floor. At least that was the floor in Mobile. Obviously, he did not perform there. He did not throw. Now it's kind of starting to switch back. He's got the weight right. He's got the size. He's got the hands that check box, check box, check box. And then you see him throw. Right now, it's second to third round is kind of where I'm hearing more third round. But you start to see, again, that race for the third quarterback off the board. Is it a Jackson Dart, who I thought had a really solid throwing day as well? Mm-hmm. That's going to be where you see a team reach for a quarterback. It happens every single year. And at this point, you know, you just don't know which of these quarterback-needy teams are going to reach, right? Will Levis, a guy that teams took a pretty large reach for, right?
Yeah.
Bo Nix, another that maybe you weren't expecting in that first round last year, and he went, top 15. So quarterbacks go much earlier than expected. And I think for Dart and Ewers, the conversation to go in the top 64 picks is right there for the taking.
Truer words have never been spoken, and some teams, unfortunately, never learn their lesson. But hey, if it gets Quinn Ewers a little bit more money in his pocket in a better situation, then I'm all for it. Speaking of situations, unfortunate situation with Gunnar Helm at the combine. We were really looking forward to watching him go through on-field drills. And CJ, we've gotten some intel about his 40-yard dash. Look, the 4.93, I don't think that was at all indicative of how he would normally run. Even the 4.84, it was better, but it sounds like he was fighting through a pretty severe injury is what it sounds like, which makes everything he did after the 40 even more impressive.
Yeah, never a time a football player wants to get hurt. Certainly not a time at the combine that you want to roll an ankle or twist an ankle. And I believe that's exactly what happened. On Texas Football learned that he was dealing with a bit of an ankle twist, right? That ankle swelled up to probably the size of a nice little softball there, Jeff. But right before his first attempt at the 40-yard dash, of course, you hear the whistles and they call guys back at times that kind of have a false start or a little twitch before the timer goes. While Gunnar was preparing for his first run, that's exactly what happened. The whistle went, and he kind of twisted an ankle at that first, attempt. And as a result, you saw the 4.39 or the 4.93, and then you also saw the 4.84, and that unfortunately was kind of the storyline for Gunnar. And again, that's not an easy thing to do, but here's kind of the redeeming story I wanted to mention. I'll pull up his little combine card here. A 7.15 in the 3-cone, a 4.4 in the 20-yard shuttle. Both of those were good for 4th amongst tight ends that participated in those drills at the combine. So it wasn't a completely washed day. And again, I think this is going to be something that we talk about redemption whenever the pro day comes around March 26th, to get a time in the 4.7s, to get a time that he can sit there and say, yeah, everything's healthy. I was 100% for. That's going to help rise him back up those draft boards once again. Great hand size. The arm length is there as well. I'm excited to see what Gunnar is able to do in Austin for the pro day. But, Jeff, I'll ask you this. What number on the bench does he have to get for you to sit there and say, okay, the physicality, the strength will translate? Because this was the conversation we had last year with Jatavian Sanders when he only put up 8. And you said, okay, I see why he fell in the draft in 2024.
I feel like if he at least doubles that,
yeah,
he gets around 16. Look, I've never been one that's put a lot of stock into the bench press. You know, it's not the sexiest drill or test or time or measurement that guys are going to do at the combine. But, you know, when it can help Gunnar Helm from the standpoint of when you watch him at Texas as a blocker early in his career, was more of an inline guy. As a senior, he became more kind of the move guy. They moved him around a lot, especially with as much split flow as Texas uses in the run game.
Right.
He became really critical, sealing off the backside, took over that role from Jatavian Sanders going from 23 to 24. So I think as long as he doubles Sanders, is around 16, I think he's going to be fine, CJ. And I think that 40-yard dash is going to improve. If I were Gunnar Helm, if I was advising him, I would probably stand on my 3-cone and my 5.10.5. Maybe you run it the pro day if you're feeling good, but I would put more stock into the 40. He's going to broad jump. He was already going to broad jump at pro day anyway. And I may go ahead and redo my vertical jump. You know, 30 is it's okay. It's not great, but you know, if he can get it into a 33, 34, somewhere like that, I don't know if that's possible, but if I were Gunnar Helm, I would probably focus on those few things and just stand on my 5.10.5 and my 3-cone.
I agree. The one thing I would add to that is I did have a conversation with somebody in Indianapolis who said, look, for Gunnar Helm and for a lot of tight ends, it wasn't a fast group of tight ends this year, Jeff, but for Helm specifically, obviously with the 4.84, you're sitting there thinking, we got to see some explosivity with Gunnar, right? We've seen the hurdles. We've seen the game tape with him with the ball after the catch. He can make some plays there, but to put the numbers out there where, again, the underwear Olympics, that's a lot of what these scouts and execs look for. The verticals, the broad jumps, you know, the 40, those are all going to check more boxes for him and help get back into that draft conversation where he wants to be.
Yeah, that March 26th pro day, it'll give Gunnar Helm time to get healthy. So hopefully he'll be pretty close to 100% by the time pro day rolls around on the 40 acres on the 26th. CJ, a guy that looked healthy and looked awesome and might be the story of the combine for the 14 Texas guys there, Matthew Golden. We figured he would run fast. We figured, hey, maybe he'll go sub 4.4. I don't think any of us at On Texas Football, I don't think even the most optimistic Texas fan thought he was going to go to Indy and run 4.29. CJ, it's been since 1980 that Texas had 3 guys go in the first round. I think the 2025 draft, you'll have 3 guys go in the first round because Matthew Golden has to be wide receiver 3 at this point in the draft process.
Couldn't agree more. And I even tweeted out yesterday, you know, it's probably time for Matthew Golden to go find a plane ticket to Green Bay for April 24th, because he's likely going to be in the green room for that NFL draft. But what a performance. And again, you run 4.29, you can take the rest of the day off. We know what kind of football Matthew Golden can play. But to your point, I think only Matthew Golden would have sat there and said, yeah, 4.2s is realistic. And for him to go out there one run in and say, yeah, 4.29 is what I'm gonna clock, I was shocked. You know, I was anticipating a 4.41 is kind of where I was in the range of a prediction for him. And again, 2 years in a row where I'm sitting here throwing out a wide receiver 40 prediction, Jeff, and I'm not even close to the number that they throw out. But credit to Matthew Golden, because I thought that the twitch was there. I thought that the jumping would be there. He really went back into his bag of a Klein Kane, track season for him and found that extra speed. He didn't throw out a prediction that he was going to break any combine records, but to come away as the fastest 40-yard dash of all the wide receivers, which second year in a row for a Texas Longhorn to be the fastest receiver in Indianapolis. That's a big check mark for Becton, Jackson, and Sarkisian. Big time winner for Matthew Golden coming out of Indianapolis.
Let's go ahead and get to the elephant in the room. You mentioned it. Had Isaiah Bond and Jaden Blue not called their shots, we would be talking about really good combines for both guys.
Right.
But they both came up well short of Xavier Worthy's 4.22. In Jaden Blue's case, you're really fast. You're nowhere near a 4.1. But, CJ, let's start with Isaiah Bond, because we talked about this in our On Texas Football group text. And I'll credit Bobby Burton. Bobby's the one that pointed it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back and looked at both runs, and he was exactly right. If Isaiah Bond just had a better technique and got a better start, he probably would have been in the mid 4.3s. But CJ, his start was so bad. And you've got the data that shows how fast he actually was running with the miles per hour. If he'd have just had a better start, he probably would have been in that mid 4.3, maybe even the low 4.3 range.
Yeah, absolutely. We sit here and talk about the buildup for these players for the last 2 months since the season ends. They kind of go into that mode where it's all just preparing for the combine and the pro day. It makes me sit here and wonder what Isaiah Bond was doing over the last 2 months, because it wasn't practicing his 40-yard dash. And that's the whole conversation. When you run track, when you run the 100-meter, when you run a 40-yard dash, you're taught basically for the first 15, 20 yards, you keep your head down until you reach full speed. Then you look up and you finish your stride all the way through the line. And that wasn't the case at all for Isaiah Bond. And it's unfortunate, obviously. He came in, called a shot, wasn't close. And now, as we talk about Matthew Golden leaving a big winner from Indianapolis, Isaiah Bond's kind of on the short end of the stick there, despite running what is a really good time of a 4.39, right? It's unfortunate, but to your point, he's still a pretty darn quick guy. And that's one of the things I wanted to bring up. He actually had the second fastest top-end speed of any player in the combine so far. 24.17 miles per hour is the top notch that he hit. Kentucky cornerback Maxwell Harrison hit 24.25. So right there to being the fastest top-end player in the entire combine. For those wondering, Matthew Golden, 23.57. So about a six-tenths of a mile per hour faster for Isaiah Bond there over Matthew Golden, but still probably not where he was hoping to come out of Indianapolis with the number by his name.
CJ, before we get to Jaden Blue, when Sark took this job, we knew that he valued speed. And it's interesting that, I think people forget early in Sark's coaching career, he did interview for the Raiders head coaching job. And we know the late Al Davis, his obsession with speed. I think he and Sark are on the same wavelength with valuing speed. But CJ, it's one thing to be fast. It's another thing when we're talking about the elite times Texas guys have run under Sark. And you credit not just the guys in their athleticism, the guys they're identifying, but you got to credit Torrey Becton. You got to credit that everybody on that strength staff. It's just Texas is one of the absolute fastest programs in the country, which is nice. Speed and athleticism are not lacking on the 40 acres right now.
No, certainly not. And I think that's going to be the continual trend that we see when you start to see how they've recruited at the high school level, but also targeted Jeff out of the portal, right? Yeah. That was a big conversation there. I got a couple times I wanted to go over the last couple of seasons, guys at the combine who have tested very well. We're familiar with Xavier Worthy running a 4.21. Matthew Golden joins him in the 4.2s with a 4.29. But how about Adonai Mitchell, 4.34, Jaden Blue, 4.38, Jahdae Barron, 4.39. What a time there. Keelan Robinson, 4.42, and Bijan Robinson at a 4.46. Look, that's pretty darn quick. And I didn't even include Isaiah Bond, who's in that 4.39 range as well. So there's 8 guys, right, from a 4.46 and lower over the last 3 combines. That's really darn good. And again, I think some of those guys might even sit there and be a little upset that those times weren't faster. So a tremendous – oh, actually, one more guy I should mention, and I talk about Sarkisian targeting speed out of the portal. Isaiah Nayor from now at Nebraska, 4.43, who also had a really impressive RAS score for himself as well. I know he didn't work out at Texas, but that kind of gives you a little bit more into the brain of Sarkisian whenever it comes to finding wide receivers from the portal. You got to be a pretty freakish athlete.
If Bijan Robinson is the slowest person in your group, then you're probably doing something right. CJ, let's finish this up with the discussion about running backs, and let's go to Jaden Blue. If you look at that 2022 running back room that Stan Drayton helped put together, that Tashard Choice inherited when his first season as running backs coach, Bijan Robinson, Roschon Johnson, Keelan Robinson, Jonathan Brooks, Jaden Blue, that's 5 deep. All 5 of those guys are going to be draft picks. And again, with Jaden Blue, had he not called his shot, we'd be talking about, hey, your running back ran a 4.38 at the combine. It was an outstanding, especially compared to the other running backs at the combine, outstanding speed, but it's just because of the 4.1 talk and the called shot that it's getting framed differently. But CJ, really good combine for Jaden Blue.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's kind of the whole, you are what you say you are. And when you say that you're going to run a 4.2 or a 4.1, that's the expectation now. And sitting in Indianapolis in the stands, when Blue stepped up to the line and when Bond stepped up to the line, the fans, it was a packed house on Saturday. They stood up because they're expecting that greatness, right? You call their shot, you got to be confident. Unfortunately, again, wasn't close, but now we're sitting here looking at a 4.38 for Jaden Blue, saying it's a bit of a disappointment, when in reality, that's the second fastest time of all the running backs that ran this week. So not a complete failure for Jaden Blue. I know that he would, of course, will likely admit that he would like to have run quicker. But again, a 4.38 for Jaden Blue, when you look at what his skill set provides, that Jahmyr Gibbs comp from a measurable perspective, it's still on the table, who ran a 4.36 when he came out of Alabama. So that's kind of where, you want to be in the range if you're Jaden Blue. The one concern, and we've talked about this, Jeff, very small hands, 8.25-inch hands. That's the second smallest hand size of any running back in the combine. Second, and I guess Texas fans would sit here and say, oh, that makes sense for some of the drops, some of the fumbles. But fortunately for Jaden Blue, when you got the ball in your hands and you got that speed, more times than not, you're not touched.
Yep. CJ, anything else real quick, about 90 seconds, anything you want to hit on before we at least as far as this video goes, put the combine to bed?
Yeah, the second straight year, I think the conversation about Texas in the combine is speed, right? Jaden Blue, Isaiah Bond. We're certainly talking about Matthew Golden being the fastest wide receiver once again. That's fun. That's encouraging. Texas sending double-digit guys to the combine once more. And we still have yet to see what these offensive linemen can do. And I'm excited to see, of course, Kelvin Banks, Jake Majors. What will Cam Williams do? Of course, he's limited with the knee injury, but I'm excited because this, again, is kind of where Texas is firmly moving forward when you start stacking these recruiting classes on top of one another. Also, I'm really excited to see what Quinn Ewers will run in Austin at the Pro Day. I've heard anywhere from range of a 4.6 to a 4.7. I don't think he'll be calling his shot at all. But this, again, is a guy that has kind of that sneaky athleticism, right? He was dunking in middle school. People forget that. I'll see, if I can get a little prediction out there, Jeff, by the time the Pro Day comes rolling around March 26th.
You also get Silas Bolden running at Pro Day, so there's some stuff to look forward to at Pro Day. But as far as the combine goes, get over to ontexasfootball.com. CJ's got plenty posted over on the site. We've obviously got plenty on the channel. We've got the Sunday night live stream going on tonight, Coffee and Football coming up in the morning, and then CJ is going to be on the winning drive with Rod Babers and Coach Bob Shipley coming up at 3:15 on Monday. So if you need more of your combine fix, CJ should have the brain recharged, be all caffeinated up and well rested by the time the winning drive comes around on a Monday. But stay tuned to the channel. Stay locked in on TexasFootball.com for all your Longhorn news, notes, and nuggets. For CJ Vogel, I'm Jeff Howe. And until next time, hook 'em.
Welcome.